I'm Sean. I'm a philosopher of health, which means I basically study the way that we think about and talk about health, and it's been a really exciting time for me to be working. See, here in the United States, unlike some other areas, we're actually having open public discussions about our health problems as a country. We're having discussions about how to fix our healthcare system, how to fix our health insurance system, and these are all really important discussions because we really have a lot of changes we need to make. The thing that's gotten me a little discouraged, though, is that as we've been having these conversations, it seems that even on both sides of the political spectrum during our political debates, it seems as if we shared one common assumption, which is this idea that if we were to somehow get it right, that if we were to fix our healthcare, then it would automatically fix our health problems as a country. And unfortunately, that's not going to be enough. See, if you look at the United States compared to the rest of the wealthy world, we're actually probably the world's best example about the limitations about what healthcare can buy us. If you compare us to other wealthy countries, we are sicker, we die younger, and even though our healthcare spending continues to go up and is already the highest in the world compared on how much we spend per person, our life expectancy now is actually going down. This is really distressing. And so as a result of that trend and some other really worrying trends, some of my colleagues have put forward a different way of thinking about our health, which is the idea that we should think more broadly about our health. It's called the population health approach, or the population health framework. And it's basically the idea that, yes, we do need to work on trying to fix our healthcare system here and elsewhere, but that we also need to think more broadly. We need to create a culture of health across all of our society, because just trying to have the best hospitals and the best doctors isn't enough to make us a healthy population. And so as we move forward in trying to improve our health, we need to think more broadly. I think one of the problems that we face as we try to think about trying to fix our health, it's almost a failure of imagination. We're able to make certain associations about how to deal with health problems, and other associations aren't so obvious to us. And so, for example, when we make associations between health insurance and the health of children, then we can see how things like improving dietary health would be obvious. So we need to make sure children and their parents are able to go to a pediatrician and get good dietary advice about how to eat better, because we're worried about what our children are eating, and that makes perfect sense. But then we don't think about all the other pieces in our society that need to fall into place in order for us to have healthy children's diets. So we don't worry enough about whether or not we're getting enough information from cooks about how to actually provide nutritious meals to children that they would actually want to eat. Because if we provide the dietary guidelines but nobody wants to eat that food, then those guidelines aren't worth anything at all. We also need to have more conversations with people like school administrators and find out what kind of obstacles they face in actually ensuring that children have those foods available to them every day inside our schools. Because if we don't do that, then we're never going to break the cycle of having children grow up to have an early preference for junk foods and then eat that food for the rest of their lives. And we also need to make sure that we're serving foods that are actually going to be consumed by children. And we're not going to have that until we actually have culturally appropriate foods. And so how do we make sure that we actually loop in parents and have conversations about what children actually are able to eat? So for example, today I'm a little worried how many children didn't have lunch at their school because their school didn't think to ask their parents, what does it mean to provide a Passover-friendly meal? And so I want to add to this idea that we need to build a culture of health, because I fully agree with that idea. I think in order to build a culture of health, we need to build a culture of humility. It's very easy for us to forget that we need to bring in voices like cooks, like school administrators, like parents, and think that they actually have something to add to the conversation about building a culture of health. It's very easy to underestimate what they would have to bring to the conversation. See, I think we've gotten into a really nasty relationship with our healthcare system. We've essentially grown up to have this expectation that doctors and hospitals are able to work miracles. And we get furious at them when they fail to meet our unreasonable expectations. And so when we go into the doctor, we essentially want them to be able to press an undo button on the cumulative negative effects of having a very unhealthy society, a very unhealthy culture. But doctors can prescribe pills, they can give advice about what to do in the future. They can't change the fact that many of us work hours that are just way too long. They can't change the fact that many of us don't have a safe place where we can send our children to go play outside and get some exercise. They can't change the fact that as a society, we've had discussions about things like maternal leave and ensuring that women have enough money to actually go home and spend time with newborn children. And as a society, we've decided we will provide exactly $0 to them. There are only 8 countries in the world that actually do this, and we're the only wealthy one that does that, 0. And so we have problems that go much deeper than just our healthcare system. So in order to actually move forward, I think we need to move forward with this idea of what I call, and my philosophy colleagues call, epistemic humility. It's this idea in philosophy that we need to each be very careful and cognizant about our limitations and our strengths as knowers of the world. It's very easy to overestimate what a few people know about the world, and very easy to underestimate what others know about the world. So it's easy to overestimate what a physician can understand about the world. Or sometimes we put too much faith in people like lifestyle bloggers, or the shady world of dietary supplements, people who are basically willing to make unreasonable claims about their abilities to solve complex problems with easy solutions. And so we need to stop overestimating what some of us can do and stop underestimating what others of us can do. See, here at Michigan State University, we're living with the repercussions of lacking a culture of epistemic humility, of lacking a culture of health that protects the well-being and the thriving of everyone in our society, in our community here. So in my own beloved community, Michigan State, we were home for over a period of decades to a physician who sexually abused hundreds of girls and women, many of them elite athletes, all under the cover of providing them with legitimate medical care. And the reason why this is, among other problems, a problem of humility and a problem of a culture of health, is that one of the things that allowed that to continue for such a long period of time was that when some of the victims came forward, when some of the survivors came forward, and they reported what had been done to them, they said, what happened inside that exam room was not right. Their knowledge was systematically devalued. So women and girls were expected to not know anything about their own bodies. And so we couldn't possibly understand that they could understand that what happened to them was not legitimate medical care. And so that perpetuated it. And so now we're dealing with the repercussions as a community. And some of the things we need to do moving forward are obvious, like that we need to have better reporting procedures to ensure that any future cases are caught earlier. We need to have better resources for our survivors. These things are obvious. But we also need to have some of the non-obvious cultural conversations. We need to be more thoughtful about trying to reform our sports culture that can transform the bodies of our athletes into objects or into commodities that we buy and sell. We need to have conversations about our culture of consent here and elsewhere. Because for too long we've permitted a culture in which men are allowed to touch first and ask permission second. That can't continue. And we need to have conversations as a community, as an institution, about what are our goals, what are our ambitions. Because it's far too easy to fall into a habit of mind of thinking that the safety and the welfare and the thriving of every member of our community could be something that gets in the way of our ambitions. When that should be our ambition, that should be what it means for us to be bold as an institution. See, I come to all these issues about trying to think about creating a culture of health and a culture of humility from a very particular perspective. I grew up the child of a nurse and a laboratory administrator. And one thing that sort of gradually sunk in over a period of thousands of family meals was the idea that it was very easy for people in authority, people of privilege, to forget that people like my parents could actually know something about what they do. It's very easy for a physician to forget that my mother can know something about caring for a child, or that my father could actually know something about running an effective laboratory, something that even a PhD scientist wouldn't understand. And so now that I've gotten my own PhD, I became a tenured professor. I worry about falling into those same habits of mind. I don't want to end up like that because it's very easy to forget that other people can know things about the world. It's very easy to lose that sense of epistemic humility. It had me so worried that I actually even tattooed on my arm, "Don't be that guy." I refuse to do it. And I hope that's even enough because I'm not really sure it will be. So as you go about your week, I encourage you to try practicing a little bit of epistemic humility as you think about what our problems are as a society, what our health problems are, and how we can go about fixing them. I encourage you to think a little more broadly. So as you interact with your friend, the accountant, what do they know about savings and how we can ensure that retirees have happy, healthy lives after they retire? What does your grandmother know about how to ensure that families can actually move on after a difficult time or after a tragedy? What does your friend in a wheelchair understand about the flaws in our shared physical spaces? The thing is, if we're ever going to build a culture of health for all of us, we need all those voices come together. We need to get all that input, because otherwise we're going to miss things. And it will be very difficult. You won't even think to consult with some people. There will be people who live on the other side of town who you would never even think to talk to because you've never even interacted with them. There will be people who would try to add to the conversation who you would not understand because they speak in a different language than you. This will be a very difficult process. Trying to fix a culture is no joke. But it is something that we need to do. And so, yes, we need to build a culture of health. Yes, we need a culture of humility to get there. And I think the first step is recognizing that when it comes to our health, there is no single person, there is no profession, there is no sector of our society that knows everything about our health, but that all of us know something. Thank you.